They are like 45% of the world GDP. And there are a lot of changes in the world order which have happened, whether the methodologies have evolved over a long period of last 100 years, and we feel they've not kept pace with the changing world order.
Absolutely.
Which is why we went back to the drawing board, set up a team, and let's evaluate this idea.
Yeah.
Let's kind of do it. It took us about 2 years to get to the situation where we could launch the ratings. But behind that, we had significant amount of meetings with multilateral institutions, with large corporate houses, with regulators, both in India as well as outside India, to understand how they look at these assessments and incorporate that. So it was quite a journey.
Oh, great. I'm glad you went through that journey. And
so, coming back to, India being Viksit Bharat by 2047, you have earlier in your podcast also said that it's not going to be a, lateral, simple journey. It's going to have its pitfalls. There are going to be years in which it will be amazing growth. There will be years in which, there'll not be such amazing growths and all. What are the major things that, in terms of policy initiatives that India should do to get there, since, you're deeply involved in policy shaping in the country? And how do we encourage risk taking and, pumping up the investment cycle in the country? Because that will also be required for us to reach the next levels of growth.
so what has happened is that the last one decade has by and large been used to do two things. One is to build the foundations which we need in terms of policy foundations, infrastructure that has been dramatically. You live in Mumbai, you can clearly see dramatic improvements.
Absolutely.
The creating structures like, for example, the GST system, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Very important, cleaning up the banking system. Very, very important thing that we have done. We now have a reasonably good, well-regulated banking system, well capitalized. So all of these things happened. But it happened also during a period of massive turbulence. So it's not just we were trying to build these foundations. It's like trying to build the foundations of a building, but in the middle of a storm. It was raining and thunder and wind. So we went through many, many storms. One obvious storm was the COVID crisis. It took up 2 full years of time and, taking decisions under enormous stress of uncertainty and not really knowing what's happening. But I think now, in retrospect, most people will agree that we did a decent job. We didn't do what many people had advised us to do, is basically blow up the budget and, open up the monetary gates and print notes. We would have had an inflation spiral, which we would have lost control of. We did it in a reasonably controlled way. It's not that we didn't provide support to the economy, but we did it in a much more restrained way than other countries. The result was that our macroeconomic stability indicators remained in good shape. Our economy recovered very, very quickly, but it recovered again after the first burst of sort of recovery. It came into the environment we have been in the last year or so, of great amount of turbulence. It's happening because there's a war on, oil prices have been going all over the place. We have obviously had this entire tariff-based situation. But I think as time is passing, we are gaining some confidence in ourselves. First of all, much of the hard work of cleaning up the banks, etc., is now done. Quite a lot of the infrastructure is done. Some good part of the policy is done. I'm not saying it's finished, but quite a lot of it is done. And having now navigated through a lot of this turbulence, we also as policymakers have gained a level of confidence which we didn't have earlier. So let me say that sitting here, what do we have? The economy is growing somewhere in the 6.5% to 7% range. Inflation is basically 2% or something. There's no real inflation. The external accounts are in decent shape. The banks are in good shape. So the stability indicators are good. Growth is decent, but not great. So what should we do? I think the time has come to begin to push the accelerator a little. In the sense that we can now that we are confident, and there are now several free trade agreements in the pipeline. All those things will happen in their own time. But I think the confidence is now coming that we can maybe push the growth well into the 7s, maybe even to 8 at some point if external
If the
conditions
stability is there, the
stability continues.
geopolitical world.
Yeah.
I say.
So I think that confidence is coming. What will be driven by? Well, first of all, we have dramatically lowered interest rates, and if necessary, we can do more. I'm sure the Monetary Policy Committee is looking at this as well. Then the fiscal, last year we were very restrained on various grounds, especially on the capital spending. We are beginning to now see momentum on that. You are for the first time in a long time beginning to see interest in doing some serious investments from the private sector, which you probably can give a better sense of as well. But there is a momentum.
Yeah.
If this momentum begins to accelerate, and we will be very supportive of this acceleration, I think we can take growth back well above 7% again.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So one of the other things which gets talked about India is its demographic dividend, in the sense that the youth bulge which is available today is seen as a major positive impetus. But are we doing enough to convert this demographic dividend into productive employment? Is a question which is often asked. Of course, the government has announced a lot of skill development initiatives and programs. But with 26% of the population in that 10 to 24 age group, we really, are in the threshold of one in a generation kind of situation. So what needs to be done to
It's not a one in
ensure-
a generation, it's a one in many hundreds of years
Yeah.
situation. This demographic dividend will be there with us for another 20, 25 years.
Mhm.
It is for us to make what we want of it. After that, we too will age. So let's be very, very clear on this.
Right.
So first point I keep making is, look, you can spend your time improving the education, skilling, etc. All in favor of that, great. But in the end, what drives growth is growth itself. And so I am coming to the view that now that the external and internal environment is conducive, just generate the growth and compound it. Don't do anything silly to blow up the financial system. I'm not saying push for 10% growth without caring. Bad idea. This has to be compounded and sustained over.
Consistent,
It has to be
sustainable.
Yes. So certainly 6.5, but I think now we should begin to 7.5, 8 is something we need to begin to push for. And that is what will generate the jobs. You can improve the education system as much as you want, but the fact of the matter is the jobs that will be created in this environment of AI and other things, you and I, we do not even know what those jobs are. How do I educate kids for it?
True.
After all, you are now into the podcasting business. Now, podcasting is a big profession now. Many, many people are making money out of this. Social media influencer is a profession. Now, 10 years ago, you don't even know what a podcast is. Till a few years ago, I didn't even know what a social media influencers are. But these are very serious people today. So the reason I'm saying this is that we have no idea what the professions of the future are.
Yeah.
And while we can try and upgrade our education system, etc., skilling, etc., as much as we want, as quickly as we want, I think simply generating the jobs is the best, because these new jobs will emerge in new areas, and to keep the environment as friendly to change for job creation, for entrepreneurship, for investment into these new areas. That is really the game. The growth itself will create the skills.
Understood.
It's not like China built great universities and then got growth. It's in the course of creating the growth, it got the force, it generated the education, skills, etc.
Right. And probably, with India recalibrating its global trade strategy. We've already signed FTAs with 13 countries, and we are in the midst of signing, large FTAs with the US, as well as the EU. That itself will get a lot of opportunities for India to kind of get into the manufacturing and other spaces.
Yes, we need to play this on the front foot. And not get too tied up with trying to protect everything. In India, we will protect certain segments which are vulnerable, but say agriculture, etc., there, of course, we will provide. But we need to also not always get into this thing that we have to protect everything. If we want the other side to open their markets to us, we will also have to open to that. That's a deal we have to do. And so we shouldn't be shy of this. And Indian industry will have to be supported, I agree, but they have to be supported in the context where we are trying to capture external markets and not just trying to go round and round in circles protecting our domestic market.
And what is the impact that this will have on the global supply chain value chain?
Well, first of all, the world is ready for an alternative to China. We are the obvious alternative to China. So we should play for it. And by the way, there are areas where we are doing very well. We are, I think, arguably already or on our course to becoming the office to the world.
That's right. The GCCs.
Every major company in the world now has a GCC somewhere in India. They are not just doing the old, call center type work. They are now doing cutting edge research. They are doing front office stuff. They are doing all kinds of decision making as well.
And there's a lot of impetus by the government also.
Absolutely. So, and that itself is killing us. Yes. And this is why I keep telling the people that if we were going to sit there and think, oh, I need to create people who are good at doing X, Y, Z, and then those people will come. That's not how it worked. They came, they actually trained us, and then it created its own dynamic.
Right.
Ironically, the Indian corporates who were complaining all these years that the engineers were not good enough for creating R&D centers, some foreign companies came and created those R&D centers. They're working perfectly well. If the cutting edge of Google can be in India,
right,
but our own companies didn't think it could be done. So that is why we need to sometimes be open to other countries. Sometimes an outsider can see the potential better than your own can.
True. So, Sanjeev ji, you've authored several critically acclaimed books on history, on economics, on cultural narratives. So, if your life were a book title, then what would it be, and who would you like to write the foreword for it?
I don't know. Maybe I would call it the ocean of churn.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's churning ocean of all kinds of things. So I already have used it for one of my books, as you know. Samudra Manthan is probably what I would describe my life. There's a lot of ingredients changing and churning all the time.
Right.
So it's not a life of linear pathways.
Right.
Who would I like it to write a foreword for it? Well, the person I would have liked to write the foreword for it is a person who was a colleague and a mentor. He unfortunately passed away recently, Vivek Debroy. Yeah. So I would have loved Vivek Da to write it. But now I'll have to think of somebody else.
Any living person.
Some living person.
Okay. And we've been hearing that there's a web series also coming up on your book called, it's called The Revolutionaries.
That's right.
So, if you can tell us something about that.
So, The Revolutionaries, it's a book of mine called The Revolutionaries, the other story of how India won its freedom. So, it's a retelling of India's freedom struggle from the perspective of those who did armed resistance to the British.
Right.
So, typically you get this impression that, India became free because Gandhiji gently suggested to the British that they should leave and they politely left. That is not the only story. There is another story which is much more bloody. But at the same time, it's a story of adventure, of bravery, of treachery. It's a very, very interesting story. And I wrote that story up partly because it's inspired by my own family history, because many of my family, from both sides of the family, by the way, mother's and father's side, were revolutionaries, part of this movement. And so I wrote this book a couple of years ago, 23 beginning I published it, and the book has done very well. But now there is a Amazon Prime series being made on it. So the first season will have 8 parts, and Nikhil Advani is directing it. I think 60% of the shooting is done. And I think a promo was also launched on the web. So some of you may have already seen it. I'm quite excited about it.
Great. Amazing. That's great. So we have a section called as Quick Edge.
Okay.
This is a rapid fire.
Okay.
I want a one-word answer or maybe a one-sentence answer.
Okay.
Not a very long answer. Just your instinct, that's all. Just want to understand instinctively what would you say. So you're an author and so many books. I think 13 books till now.
Yeah, well, some of them are children's versions of the other ones. So I would say seven books, proper 7 books.
Okay. So what's your favorite place to write?
So I do quite a lot of my writing in my at home. I have a small library, study, whatever you want to call it. So I do quite a lot of my writing there because the reference books are lying around in piles around me when I'm doing it. But then once I've got some part of it written down, a lot of the editing I do on flights, because I fly a lot. I spend a lot of time sitting around in airport lounges or some hotel room somewhere on the planet, jet lagged, not able to sleep. So a lot of the polishing and editing and all of that is done
There.
there.
Okay. Okay, so what is it difficult? What is more difficult to write, a fiction or a policy paper?
Policy papers are much easier.
Easier.
So there are three levels or types of things I write. One is the policy type stuff. One is the non-fiction books that I write, and the third is fiction. So the most of what I write is, and it's not necessarily in my name, but sometimes it is actually policy stuff.
So that's more difficult than.
No, but it's difficult in the sense that there's a lot of bulk coming out. So there's so much of it I'm doing, so it's using up a lot of my energy is done on that. Non-fiction writing, of course, is the bulk of my popular writing. And that it's hard work in terms of I'm the only person writing, right? So I'm physically typing out every line. So that, but on the other hand, it's in my control. If I don't publish something this year, I can publish it next year.
You don't want to choose one over the other. You kind of say.
So I'm just telling you there are different kind of difficulty.
Yeah.
I'm not writing so much of it. I'm doing it purely out of my own interest. Nobody's forcing me to write these books. On the other hand, I have to do all of it. And then there is fiction, which I have only written one book of. So, so in some ways that is more difficult because you have to do the whole thing. But then the advantage of it, as I mentioned to you, you can be entirely in your own head.
Yes.
You can invent the character. You don't need to be researching something out of. But then it is an area where you can get writer's block because because you just may not be able to know what the next twist is, and
okay.
And you're stuck with it.
Okay, so the next question, and I want a small answer in this. If policy making were a sport, then what would it be?
Mixed martial arts.
Okay.
Because sometimes you need to wrestle the guy, sometimes you have to punch, sometimes you get punched.
Okay.
So it's definitely mixed martial arts.
Okay. Okay, street food in Kolkata or in Delhi? Which one?
I'll go with Kolkata.
Okay.
I'm very much a non-vegetarian. So.
Okay, so Kolkata it is.
Yeah, Kolkata it is.
Okay, and the last question. Describe India of tomorrow in one word.
Bright.
That's it. So here we wind up this compelling episode of InsightEdge, a CareEdge podcast where insight meets impact. Today we journeyed through the mind of Sanjeev ji, a thinker who challenges conventions, as I mentioned earlier. Thank you so much, viewers, for tuning in. Signing off for today, and hope to come back with many more such engaging episodes. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sanjeev ji.